What's up, everybody? I'm Caleb Ochoa, also known as NFL Caleb 22, and this is Betting the NFL week number 13. And as always, here with me, my co host, Derek Weatherly, also known as DWeezy. What's going on, man?
Man, ready to dive into these lines and see what value we can find. Coming off, another good week, back to back winning weeks, able to stack a couple of units, dropped a couple extra plays and some shorts. So, giving the people a reason to have those notifications turned on. Went 2 and 0 there. So definitely had a good week and looking to do it again.
Awesome. That's what we do. We try to get winning weeks and try to win you all some money with our five best bets of the week, and we'll get into those soon enough. Before we do that, we have to recap what happened in week number 12. As for the betting trends, the home teams look good against the spread, 8-6, 57.1% winning percentage. The dogs, great week, 9-5, 64% winning percentage. But the home dogs, and you know how much I love the home dogs, they went 4-1 and they won at an 80%. That was a great week for home dogs. So if you were on any of those, you won yourself some money. As for the overs and unders, not a lot of points scored. Not a lot of points scored in week 12. 10 unders compared to 4 overs. Um, like I said, throughout the year, it's been mostly even. Sometimes it's overs that hit, sometimes it's unders. It's not really a trend. It's kind of back and forth all through the season. So there really is no trend. It's kind of, I guess the trend is going back and forth. Maybe next week the overs are starting to hit, maybe because they adjust the lines for whatever. It just seems to be kind of even. So if the unders hit, I would bet that the probably overs are going to hit this week.
Yeah, with the back and forth that we've been seeing, there's been no real consistency one way or the other. So, you know, it's one of those things, you got to take it with each individual matchup. Um, you might have a team or two out there that has a higher tendency to the over or the under, but, with this even play, sometimes it doesn't take much to be able to cover these numbers or, in the reverse, come up just, short of your under coming in for you.
And we'll say what's up to Jay. What's going on, man? Thanks for tuning in. We'll get to our records for the week. I had a winning week, went 3-2, and my best pick was, I mean, who would have guessed my Dallas Cowboys plus 3.5 versus at home versus the Eagles. They win it 24-21. I mean, I just felt it all week. With the additions we made onto the defense, especially Quentin Williams, who has vastly improved our defense, our run defense specifically, which was the hugest problem for us. We could not stop the run, but he also has led the other guys to create a pass rush, which we've been lacking for most of the season, and and it really showed up, especially at the end of the game when the Eagles' last possession where we ended their drive with the sack. Um, and I just believed. I believed in the turnaround of this team, um, especially after the Raiders win. And everybody said it was just the Raiders, and okay, we just beat them because they're bad. But no, I really felt like we had improved. We looked like a better football team, and on both sides because the offense wasn't looking too good either for the 2 weeks prior to that. But they finally got back on track. So I really felt like we had momentum going into the Eagles game, and that's why I felt really good about getting points at home, where Dak plays great, where this Cowboys team plays great. So I feel like I thought this was just a money pick, and it really paid off because they did not just cover, they won it outright. And having to come back like that, being down 21 points, shows our ability to come to have a big comeback like that, and it gives me confidence going forward that I can put my money on this team and keep betting the Cowboys going forward.
Yeah, when you talk about a team turning things around, the first thing you got to do is win those games that you're supposed to win. So when you look at a matchup like the other week, Cowboys versus the Raiders, yes, they should win that game and win that game handedly, and that's what occurred. And those were all the right indicators that you like to see coming into this matchup with the Eagles. And something I touched on last week that kind of showed up in a very abrupt way. This offense seems to be broken. Failing to put up any points after getting the lead that they did and losing this game in the fashion that they did just goes to show you how broken this offense is. There's no reason they should have lost this game. There's no reason they shouldn't have been able to put up any more points once they reached that 21-point threshold. So, you know, just to have a team with the offense like the Cowboys currently have, getting plus points, playing well, having momentum, it definitely seemed like the right side going into that game. And though things did not get off to the start that you wanted to see if you was backing the Cowboys in this matchup, but when it was all said and done, you found yourself standing on the right side, and that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Say what's up to my dad. We'll get to your week.
Yes, like I said, coming off another winning week, 3-2, and when it comes to my best play, I got a couple that for nomination, but really I think I got to go to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I pushed the number up, getting the plus money, needed to cover 104 and a half. The man did it damn near in the first half. Had, I believe, almost 80 yards in the first half, covered uh, fairly comfortable into the second half. Finished the game going well over the 104 and a half that I had. So really, anybody out there that had any sort of over on his receiving props, you were walking away with money. So definitely had to be, my best pick on the week. Like I said, it was a matchup that I felt great about going up against a defense that has really struggled against the pass game this season. Weren't able to get to Sam Darnold, and there's not too many teams out there that have somebody that can stay with JSN right now. So if you're not getting to Sam Darnold, if you're not disrupting that passing game from the quarterback side of things, you better have a lockdown cornerback out there, and that was not the case this past weekend. And we saw my man for Seattle, fly over his receiving prop.
All right, we talked about the good. Now we got to talk about the bad. And my worst pick was. Oh, we'll get to Jay first. He says it was Sam. He knows that get the ball out to JSN and worry about the rest later. Yeah, I mean he's been doing that all season, and it's been working out for them pretty damn well. I mean, he's looking like the best receiver in the NFL. So definitely agree with that. Um, but yeah, my worst pick was I was talking about Sam Darnold JSN was that game. I was on the Seahawks minus 13 and a half at the Titans. They win it 30-24, but they do not cover the spread. And this is why. This is why I'm reluctant to take those big spreads. Because I mean, the favorite is capable of doing it. It's just uh it's just whether they will or not will they keep their foot down and um, after they get that big lead because they had a 20-point lead in the third quarter, but then they get relaxed and they let the other team come back, and that's exactly what happened. The Titans had two long touchdown drives late in the game, and that was pretty unexpected considering how they were playing through most of the game. And you would think the Seahawks defense, obviously they're really good, wouldn't let that happen. But like I said, they took their foot off the gas and just let them down the field, and they get two touchdowns just like that. And you got to give the Titans credit and Cam Ward credit for not giving up, especially this one win team that just seems hopeless and they're down 20 points and they were still fighting in the end. So give them credit for that. But damn, that backdoor cover sucks, and that's why I hate those big point spreads. But it just looked too juicy. I mean, you had one of the best teams versus the worst teams. How can you not take that? And how can you not think they're gonna blow them out because they were blowing them out? It's just damn backdoor cover.
Yeah, that's the risk you take with these double digit spreads in the NFL. You've heard us talk about it before. It's damn near a principal play that you got to take the dog getting the points because regardless of the matchup, regardless of the outcome, there's too many different ways for these underdogs to put up points in garbage time, maybe actually legitimately be in the game and have a chance to try and win it, and that be enough to keep them well within that large spread or whatever the case may be. So, yes, you know, college, you can see 20, 30 point spreads get covered and routinely get covered. NFL is a different story. And when you see those double digit spreads, this is why so many people are weary of taking, the favorite. Because in your mind, you feel like, yes, this team should win by, X amount of points. And in reality, more often than not, we see that is not the case. Now, going into my worst play from last week, I got to go with Lamar Jackson up in Baltimore. Definitely does not seem to be 100% healthy, even with a couple weeks under his belt. And it makes you really wonder what's going on in Baltimore. Um, you know, if there was issues with or concerns with his health coming in, sit him because I'm pretty sure Lamar Jackson, he's fairly comfortable saying, if I got to miss a game because I'm not 100% or because I might risk further injury, which is potentially what we saw, because I'm seeing injury reports now referencing a toe or foot injury, and it was a hamstring injury before that had him sidelined and missing time. And so, that raises some serious questions about how healthy was Lamar coming not only into this past week, but if we see him play this Thursday on a short rest. There's a lot of questions and concerns about, the health around Lamar Jackson. And if Lamar Jackson isn't healthy, that definitely raises some serious concerns about the Baltimore Ravens moving forward through the rest of the season.
All right, that will wrap up our week number 12. And before we get into week 13, if you guys can go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you really want to help us out, you can join Patreon, join Coffee, all the links in the description down below. We would very much appreciate it if you did that. We just appreciate you for watching and tuning in right now. So now we will get into our 5 best bets of the week. And since we have both winning weeks, I guess you've been going first a lot, so I guess I'll take it. Um, and who do you think I'm going to start with? I'm going to keep rolling with my boys, Cowboys, plus 3.5 at home on Thanksgiving. And I usually don't take Thursday games because weird stuff happens. But this is different. This is Thanksgiving. Everybody watching. Everybody will be watching this game against the Chiefs. And I mean, I said we were going to get on a roll. We've got 2 in a row, and we're not gonna stop. We're gonna keep going. And I've won. I bet on them the last 2 weeks. They've won, and I'm gonna keep on betting them until they show me otherwise. Um, yeah, I mean the odds makers, don't seem to think much of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean they're giving them 3.5 points at home on Thanksgiving. That's a little disrespectful. So, but it does provide a lot of good value because I think they have the advantage going in this game. They have the momentum. I think they're even more desperate than the Chiefs might be. And as I mentioned earlier, our defense is much improved. From what obviously from what it was. It's not the greatest, but it's still better than a lot better than what it was. And for the most of the season, the Chiefs kind of have struggled in offense. They especially have struggled to run the ball, specifically. Even though despite last week they had a decent game running the ball, but that is where we have improved the most is stopping the run. And if we can do that, we can make them one dimensional like they were during the little slump that they've been having, where all they could do was throw the ball, but that wasn't working. That wasn't turning into W's for them. And with Dak playing as well as he has, I do believe we'll be able to move the ball consistently and keep Mahomes off that field. Chiefs just 1-4 against the spread on the road. Cowboys 5-2 in the last seven home games. So definitely love my Cowboys getting the points here.
Yeah, this is a matchup I like a lot. Yes, it's technically, Thursday game, Thanksgiving game. I think, with a team like the Cowboys where they're going to be playing it every year, I think you can plan for it a little bit more, but like you said, weird things happen when you play with the schedule and players' routines and things of that nature. But like I said, I like the matchup. And that's why I'm on Prescott to go over 2.5 passing TDs in this game, bumping it up, going for the plus money. You can get that at plus 210 for him to get 3 passing TDs in this game. And if you look at the past few weeks, this offense has been humming. Dak's thrown for 250 or more yards in the last 3 games, with 7 TDs over that span. We're talking about KC. Yes, they have been able to stop the run fairly well this season, but this is an offense with Dallas that doesn't need the run game to be successful. So if KC does go out there and shuts down any run game that we see out of the Cowboys, well, that just forces them to play into their better weaponry, going with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. You could even possibly target a couple of anytime TD props for the offense, like the Cowboys in this game. Dallas, like I said, first in pass yards. When it comes to the pass game this season, they've shown they've been a major force. Now, that hasn't always translated to wins directly, but we've definitely seen this team be competitive, in it late within games. And when you're talking about, needing production out of the pass game, these are the kind of scenarios that you like to see. So, yes, you could take, this prop at over 1.5. But like I said, I'm going for that plus money. I think Dak puts up at least 3 TDs this weekend. We saw him put up 4 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's see if we can do it again with another AFC West opponent.
All right. And I'm going back to Thanksgiving for that night game. And I'll be taking the Bengals +7 at the Ravens. I am expecting Joe Burrow to play in this game. But that's not why I like the Bengals. It's more of why what you were talking about earlier, Lamar Jackson not being right. I mean, this offense has been, uh, you know, been winning ugly. And it's because he's had all these injuries. Now he has an injury with the toe. So I don't think going into it, he's going to be super healthy going into this game, and I expect another shaky performance by their offense. Now that doesn't mean they're not going to win this game because I do believe they will. The Bengals defense is pretty god awful, um, but I think the Ravens can shoot themselves in the foot sometimes and make it more muddier than it should be, and that's why I think the Bengals can keep it close. Plus when you're getting 7 points, that's a lot for a divisional game, and and only one of the last 4 matchups between these two teams, the Ravens have beaten the Bengals by more than 7 points. Um, so I do like them. I do like getting that 7 points. Like I said, I think the Ravens will win, but I do not think it'll be more than some points. Ravens just 2-4 against the spread at home, 4-8 in the last 12 games overall. They are not covering. They're not a good cover. So definitely like the Bengals.
Yeah, this was a matchup that I looked at, but there's too many questions with key pieces of both teams in this matchup. Like you said, we were talking about Lamar Jackson and the questions surrounding him. We hear the possibility of Joe Burrow. It hasn't been confirmed by anything I've heard that he will be starting, but yes, he was activated, so the possibility of him starting is on the table. It just all it takes is the coaching staff to decide that he's starting. I mean, that's basically where we sit with him at the moment. And without any of that information being available, it makes it very difficult to try and approach this game. In theory, yes, this is definitely a matchup that you would like to go after. You got a strong, wide receiver core on one side going up against a secondary that's struggled for a large portion of the season. Yes, you would like to have Joe Burrow in that matchup, but there's just too many questions, on both sides of the ball in this matchup. And like you said, the Ravens have been winning games, but they're winning ugly, even against lesser opponents. And is it possible that they win this game and not cover the 7 points? Absolutely. I think we could see this potentially come down to a field goal, that 3.5, 4 point range type of scenario. So you know, from a spread standpoint, yeah, I definitely like the Bengals. From any prop markets in this game, it's really one that I'd stay off of. Now moving into my next play, I'm going back to, a little same game parlay, heavy chalk TD parlay, going, to my Panthers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The secondary for the Panthers has been banged up, and we also have a suspension on the board after the incident after the game last week with the 49ers. And you're talking about going up against what's been one of the, if not the hottest offense in the league with the Los Angeles Rams. You got Devontae Adams and Kyrie Williams scoring a TD in this matchup. I mentioned the depth issues for the Panthers coming into this game. The Rams have scored at least 34 points in 4 of their last 5 matchups, and Stafford's gone over 1.5 pass TDs 5 straight games, and over 2.5 pass TDs in 4 of 5 games. So the likelihood of passing TDs being put up in this game is high. Definitely like the fact that we can get Williams touchdown on the ground, through the air. Both options just as likely. Adams has made a very strong resurgence to the player that we've seen in the past, more of his days in Green Bay, and that's been reflected with the amount of TDs that we've seen him rack up. So going with another nice little TD parlay plus 169 in this game.
Jay doesn't seem too confident in the Panthers' chances. All right. I'll get to my third bet of the week, and I got the Bears +7 at the Eagles. This is just so many points. I mean, there's a lot of points for two winning teams who are both at the top of their divisions. How can I not take the points in this one? Eagles coming off a loss where they did not score for 2.5 quarters, and their offense hasn't been good all year. They can't get their run game going. Yes, Saquon really hasn't not looked good. He hasn't been the same. The play calling has been bad, and they have to, they've been dealing with AJ Brown drama, and I don't know how you can think this offense can cover a 7 point spread against a good team with the Bears. Um, the Bears are up, not a great defense, but they are opportunistic when it comes to turnovers. And yeah, the Eagles defense can definitely hold them down and good enough to win this game. But they haven't been I think they've only beaten one opponent by more than 7 points once this season. So I can see them winning an ugly game, but I just cannot see them winning by more than 7. Bears 7-2 against the spread last 9 games. Good covering team. 4-2 on the road. So I mean 7 point. I mean I think they can. I can think they can cover that.
Yeah, this seems to be the week of going back to the well of things that have worked, and fading the Eagles has worked in the past, and I see, no reason to go back to that. As I mentioned last week, this offense, it looks broken. It defies logic why this offense doesn't work. Why we see week after week different reasons for the struggles, like you just mentioned. And unfortunately that leads to a lack of points. Now that hasn't always led to, losses, as they've still been able to, get the victory in some instances, but we've definitely seen that offense struggle. And until they can prove otherwise, there's no reason to back this team as any sort of favorite in any matchup, regardless of who's on the other side of the ball. And in this case, we're talking about a Bears team that's definitely maybe playing above their means, maybe a year or two ahead of schedule, new head coach Ben Johnson. So, definitely like the Bears from a spread standpoint in this matchup. Going to my next play, like I mentioned, go to what works. Trends are our friends, and that's a big reason why I'm going back to this player, somebody I hit up before, going to HN from the Miami Dolphins over his rushing prop of 77.5 yards. Now they're taking on the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints have struggled against the run this season. You know, he's gone over this his rushing props 6 out of the 7 last games. New Orleans has given up 142 yards on average in the rushing game per game, and multiple running backs this season have gone over 100 yards on their defense. And in multiple games, we've seen, you know, primary rushers have very successful days against this team. So when we talk about Achan coming in, he's been very hot on the ground, especially in these, the first half of the season, maybe not utilized so much on the ground, but in the past 4 or 5 weeks, we've definitely seen a change in that mentality. And he's been able to take advantage of his matchups. So I definitely like this matchup and going with the over 77.5 rushing yards.
And I'll be on this game as well. I'm taking the Dolphins -6 at home. Dolphins coming off a bye after a victory in Spain against the Commanders. That gives them a 2-game win streak. They have shown that they can win big when they blew out the Bills. The Saints, on the other hand, they're sitting there, seeing what they have in Tyler Shuck, and last week it really didn't amount to much. Scoring just 10 points and losing by 14 to the Falcons, and they haven't scored 20 points in a game since week 5. So as long as the Tua doesn't turn over the ball, I think they can cover that 6 point spread pretty easily. Honestly, Saints 1-5 against the spread last 6 games, 2-3 on the road. Dolphins 6-3 against the spread last 9 games, 4-2 at home. So it seems all the numbers are adding up, and then it's screaming Dolphins -6.
All right. Moving, into my next one, going, to somebody I hadn't, tried to utilize this year, I don't believe, but going out to the other team in LA, and that's the Chargers. We're going to Lad McConkey, going over 51.5 receiving yards in this game. We're, targeting a Vegas Raiders defense that, we were able to take advantage of them a couple weeks ago when they took on the Cowboys. We're going to be looking to do the same thing here. Now he's gone over this number 5 out of the last 7 games. He's utilized in the deep game or the deep passing game. Deep threat this season. 4 games with at least one reception of 20 plus yards or more. We've seen him, rain in 40, 50 yard bombs. So the possibility of covering this, receiving yards prop, even only 4 or 5 catches, he's utilized in a way that does allow might cover this prop on just 1 or 2 receptions, and he is the type of player that when he gets into space, he's able to make guys miss. He's able to rack up some of that yak yardage that you like to see, especially when you're playing a prop like this. As I said, we're targeting a defense that's 21st in yards per completion and 23rd in completion percentage. So if we're talking about giving up more passes per attempt, definitely like McConkey's chances of covering this rushing or this receiving prop.
Yeah, those Raiders DPs are bad. They get taken advantage quite often. So it seems like a great bet to make. Moving on to my last bet of the week, and I'm gonna take the Texans plus 4.5. Lots of underdogs this week, but it's just because I like other point spreads this week. It is still up in the air whether CJ Stroud will play in this game, but they have won two straight games with Davis Mills, and I think they're on a 3 game win streak, with the latest being a great upset win on Thursday Night Football against the Bills. This Texas defense is pretty relentless this season. They keep teams under 100 yards rushing at 92.2 yards per game, which definitely can limit the Colts' biggest weapon in Jonathan Taylor. The Colts coming off a rough loss to the Chiefs, where they led in double digits, but the offense stalled. And it was helped by Daniel Jones making some mistakes, and Jones has been turning the ball over lately, and I believe the Texans' defense can definitely force him into those mistakes. They sacked Josh Allen like 8 goddamn times last week, um, and with how well the Texans' defense has been playing and the Colts' offense kind of slowing down a little bit, I think they can definitely cover this spread. They are, coming off of kind of a mini bye, obviously, with the Thursday night game. They have a little bit of rest. So I think they're definitely going to be, good to go going into this game and ready to cover that 4.5.
Yeah, the way the Houston Texans are playing, I don't think anybody wants to be that team to get in their way at the moment. You know, playing beyond their means at the moment. Having that freedom. To just play loose. Some not to say that the season's over, but I think you might technically say playoff hopes are still alive. But we see this defense go out there and be a monster week after week. They got momentum on their side. They've racked up a couple of wins with Davis Mills going out there, and with a team like this, momentum and that self belief is probably two of the most dangerous things you can have if you're standing on the other side of the ball. So it definitely makes it difficult trying to judge this matchup. The defense for Houston, definitely the most important key to this matchup. And I think that's going to create real problems and definitely make that +4 a possibility of coming through. Now going into my last play, like I said, I mentioned before, we go back to the things that work for us. Trends are your friends. If it worked before and it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now we're going to a bit of a different market, but going back to a team that is cash for me, going to the New England Patriots and Drake May, going with the over 29.5 passing attempts in this game. Now, New York Giants, 25th in passing attempts allowed per game. We also see, in the past 3 games, the Patriots have thrown for at least 30 pass attempts in each of the last 3 games. And May also leads the league in completion percentage, meaning when he is throwing the ball, he's completing a lot of these passes, thus meaning there's more opportunities to throw more passes. Those things not directly, but correlate with having a better third down percentage and things like that. The more plays they have, the more opportunities you got for them to throw the ball, and it definitely helps when you're connecting on those throws. So definitely like this prop coming into this week. Over the 29.5 pass attempts on a offense that has been running strong all season long now, and nobody's really been able to slow them down.
All right. And that's all your bets.
Yep.
All right. There you go. That is our show. Hopefully, you guys get in all your bets before the Thanksgiving game starts. Safe betting out there. Only bet what you can afford to lose, and you can tell them where they can find you, DWeezy.
Yes, the folks can get at me, here with good friends, better rivals. Like I said, keep those notifications on, folks, because there could be some shorts and other things coming out with even more betting content. They can also, articles on the website and potentially some few things back on my channel. Backyard Action Media. Folks can reach me on Twitter at the Yard Bets. Pumping out a lot of content and betting information for the people.
You can find me at NFLCat22 on Instagram and Twitter/X. You can find me on this channel doing Good Friends by Rivals at Fridays 5 o'clock. Talking Cowboys, talking Giants. Hopefully, we'll be talking a win, our third win in a row. Hopefully on Friday, but tune in for that. And then yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We'll see you next week. And like I always say, let's get ready to make that money.